You remember these? The old Thomas Guide. I spent half of 1994 with one of these balanced on my lap, squinting at the fine print and pretending I knew exactly how to read grid D7 on the first try, while my passenger looked at me with total doubt. If you wanted to go somewhere new back then, you didn't just plug it in. You had to study. You had to have a plan. And if you missed a turn, there was no calm voice telling you she was recalculating. You just had to pull over, find a street sign, and admit you were lost. I'm thinking about that today because there's a specific kind of grit we learned growing up in the 90s. It was a time when the world was just starting to go digital, but our lives were still very much analog. We had to deal with friction. By the end of this talk, I think you'll see why that struggle we went through is actually the very thing that helps us stay grounded now in a world that never seems to stop talking. Let's talk about the way we used to consume things. Take music. Today, you have every song ever recorded in your pocket. It's convenient, sure, but in the 90s, music was a physical pursuit. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, radio tuned to the local station, holding a blank cassette. My thumb would be hovering over that record button for 2, maybe 3 hours. You'd be waiting for that one specific track. And the DJ, man, the DJ was your worst enemy. You'd be praying he wouldn't talk over the first 10 seconds or cut the ending short to announce a sale on used cars. When you finally caught that song, it felt like a victory. You'd take a pen and carefully write the name of the band on the little paper insert. It took effort. It took time. And because it took effort, that music actually meant something. You didn't just skip to the next track after 30 seconds because you were bored. You lived with it. Then came the Discman. We thought we were living in the future. I remember the box said anti-skip technology. It was a complete lie. If you walked a little too fast or, heaven forbid, tried to jog with one of these, the music would just stutter. It would hang on a single note like a broken record. You'd have to hold the player perfectly level, like you were carrying a bowl of hot soup through a crowded room just to get through a single album. It sounds like a massive headache now, doesn't it? But there was a lesson in that delicate tech. It forced you to move a little slower. It forced you to be mindful of your surroundings. If you wanted the music to keep playing, you had to keep things steady. You had to be present. Today, we can run, jump, and drive while 1,000 songs play perfectly in our ears. And sometimes I think we forget we're even moving. Now let's talk about being reachable. In the 90s, when you left your house, you were essentially off the grid. If someone needed you, they called your landline. And if you weren't there, the phone just rang. Maybe they'd leave a message on a machine with a little blinking red light, and you'd see it whenever you got home. Or maybe you had a pager. You remember that distinct beep beep on your hip? You'd look down at that tiny screen, see a phone number, and then the hunt began. You'd have to find a payphone. You'd be digging through your pockets for a quarter, hoping the phone wasn't smashed or covered in grime. There was a boundary there. When you were out at the park or sitting at a diner, you were there. You weren't constantly being tugged at by emails or notifications from people who don't actually need you. You had the freedom to be unavailable. I think we've traded that freedom for the convenience of being constantly connected. We've lost the quiet edge of just being alone with our thoughts while we wait for a friend to show up at the mall. And then there was the style. It wasn't about being sharp or curated for a camera. We had the 90s uniform, baggy jeans that probably dragged on the ground a bit, oversized sweaters and flannels, lots of flannels. It was a look that didn't require much of an ego. It was comfortable. It was honest. You weren't trying to look like a brand. You just looked like a guy who might be headed to a concert or might be headed to help his neighbor fix a fence. There was a simplicity to it. We didn't have influencers telling us what was in every 24 hours. We just wore what our friends wore. It was a slower cycle. It gave you room to just be yourself without the pressure of a digital audience watching your every move. Think about how we used to learn things. Before Google, there was the Encyclopedia Britannica, or if you were really high-tech, you had Encarta on a CD-ROM. I remember clicking through those grainy photos and waiting for the little video clip to load. It felt like magic. If you wanted to know something, you had to go looking for it. You had to go to the library. You had to look through a card catalog. You had to physically pull a book off a shelf and flip through the index. Information had weight. It had a price in terms of your time. Even the internet itself. You remember the sound? That screeching, hissing handshake of the dial-up modem? You'd sit there for 2 minutes just waiting to connect. And then you'd wait another 3 minutes for a single image to load, line by line from top to bottom. It was frustrating, sure, but it taught you to value what you found. You didn't just mindlessly scroll through thousands of headlines. You chose what you wanted to look at, and you waited for it. There was an intentionality to our curiosity that's easy to lose when everything is instant. I think about blockbuster nights. That was a ritual, wasn't it? Friday evening, walking through those aisles, looking at the boxes. You'd spend 45 minutes just picking out one movie. And if the new release you wanted was out of stock, well, you had to pivot. You'd end up with some obscure action flick or a comedy you'd already seen 3 times. And then there was the be kind rewind rule. It was a small thing, but it was a social contract. You did a little bit of work so the next person didn't have to. If you forgot, you paid $1 or $2. It was a reminder that your actions had a small physical impact on the person coming after you. When everything's available all the time, we've made the choice so easy that the payoff doesn't feel like much anymore. We spend more time scrolling through the menu than we do actually watching the film. We've lost the struggle of the choice, and in doing so, we've lost some of the satisfaction of the payoff. Look, I'm not saying the 90s were perfect. I don't miss late fees. I don't miss getting lost because I read the map wrong. And I certainly don't miss the sound of a dial-up modem when I'm trying to get things done. But I do miss the patience that world forced us to have. I miss the way we had to earn our entertainment. I miss the quiet that came with being unreachable. In the 90s, we had to deal with boredom. Boredom is underrated. It's that space where your own thoughts finally have enough room to breathe. It's where you figure out who you are when no one is watching and no one is pinging you. Today, we use our phones to kill every spare second of silence, and I think we're poorer for it. So here's what I've been trying to do lately. It's not a big challenge or anything, just a small change. The other night, I decided to go for a drive without the GPS. I just picked a direction and tried to find my way by landmarks, the old grocery store, the park with the big oak tree. And while I was out, I just left the phone in the center console. I didn't check the email. I didn't scroll the news. I just wanted to see if I could find that quiet edge again. It felt a little strange at first, that phantom itch to reach for the screen, but once I got past it, it was peaceful. I felt like I was back in 1996 for an hour, just a guy in a truck watching the road, being exactly where he was. Maybe you could try something like that this week. You don't have to throw away your tech, but maybe just disappear for an hour. See what happens when you're not reachable. See if you can sit with the boredom long enough to hear yourself think again. We learned some hard-won wisdom in those decades. We learned that the struggle is often where the value lives. The waiting, the searching, the little annoyances, that's actually what gave everything its weight. Don't let the convenience of today talk you out of the character you built back then. If this trip down memory lane gave you a bit of perspective, think about subscribing. It's good to have you here, and I think there's a lot of work ahead for us as we try to stay grounded in this digital world. Take care of yourself.